The invasion of Ukraine by the Russian Federation and the actions of the Russian military have created a strong division between much of the world and Russia. Many countries, especially in Europe, have united to support Ukraine in a way unseen since Germany's invasion of Poland in the Second World War. From the unprecedented military and monetary support of Ukraine from the US and other NATO members to the neutrality and support of Russia by its allies, this video will explain how different countries are responding to the war. Many of the events of the past 2 weeks would have seemed politically impossible prior to the invasion. Germany, Switzerland, and Sweden all have non-aggression policies which they have had to set aside to support Ukraine. Germany doubled its military budget, an action which NBC News stated was one of the most significant shifts in European security policy in decades, and is a major reversal of deep-seated skepticism among Germans about having a large, well-equipped military. The EU itself is sending 450 million euros in lethal aid to Ukraine, a historic first for the alliance, which has never previously delivered aid in the form of weapons. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has garnered widespread sympathy for the Ukrainian people, many of whom have been subjected to significant attacks on civilians and residential areas. Aid in the form of resources and money has been flowing into Ukraine from multiple EU and UN allies, allowing the Ukrainian army to resupply and respond properly to Russian attacks on land and in the air. Ukraine has received $100 million in cryptocurrency donations and over $2 billion in civilian donations. There are also coordinated efforts to provide medical and essential supplies, such as water purification systems and blankets to Ukraine. However, many convoys, including the ones destined for a starving Mariupol, where children have been dying of dehydration, have been struggling to reach their destinations due to the difficulties of wartime logistics and Russia preventing humanitarian aid from reaching civilians in need. Countries have also provided both lethal and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. The US leads with a $13.6 billion aid package to Ukraine and an additional $200 million in defense assistance, while the EU provided 1.2 billion euros in emergency funds to Ukraine. Countries have also been providing unparalleled support for the 2.5 million Ukrainian refugees that have flocked to the borders over the last 2 weeks. Estimates on how many Ukrainians will flee their country and become refugees are as high as 10 million people, but some neighboring countries like Poland have been working very hard since the invasion started to support refugees, say they are nearly at capacity. The EU's response to the Ukrainian crisis is a sharp reversal of their 2008 rejection of Ukraine into the Union. When Ukraine applied to become a member in 2008, the idea was highly controversial, and since all member states of the EU must agree, their application was ultimately denied. At the start of the invasion, President Zelensky applied for Ukraine to once again be considered for EU membership. Their entry was highly controversial. However, the Eastern European nations were able to successfully persuade the skeptical Western European nations that Ukraine should be approved and allowed to start the years-long process of becoming an EU member. Further, the President of Poland has asked that the EU fast-track Ukraine's application process. However, many remain adamant that this isn't possible, with the Dutch Prime Minister stating that there is no fast-track procedure to become a member of the EU. The United Nations, similarly, has shown significant support for Ukraine, with the General Assembly overwhelmingly adopting a resolution demanding that Russia immediately end its military operations in Ukraine. A total of 141 countries voted in favor of the resolution, reaffirming Ukrainian sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity. The resolution demands that Russia immediately, completely, and unconditionally withdraw all of its military forces from the territory of Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders. 5 countries, Belarus, North Korea, Eritrea, Russia, and Syria, voted against it, while 35 abstained, including China and India. Many nations, not viewing UN and EU condemnation as sufficient, have taken it upon themselves to implement harsh sanctions on the Russian Federation as a way to punish them at home for their invasion of a sovereign nation. With over 5,580 unique sanctions, Russia is currently the most sanctioned country in the world, surpassing Iran, North Korea, and Syria, with the latter two only amounting to a combined 4,685 sanctions. Surprisingly, the historically neutral Switzerland, along with major European power France, lead other countries in the number of sanctions lobbied against Russia, with 568 sanctions and 672 respectively. Alongside Switzerland, the European Union, France, Canada, Australia, and the US make up the vast majority of countries sanctioning Russia. Due to these sanctions, the major producers in the semiconductor industry have stopped exports of high-tech essentials to Russia. Semiconductors are essential components in electronic devices, which means they will severely impact Russia's ability to produce weaponry, such as heat-guided missiles, as well as other electronics, including electric vehicles, smartphones, and other consumer electronics, medical and military equipment, heavy machinery, batteries, and virtually all computer systems. The economic embargo has caused significant damage to the Russian economy. The ruble has lost nearly 50% of its value against the dollar since the start of the year, with losses sharply accelerating since Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th. Inflation has gone up 2.2% in a single week. Russia is headed for one of its biggest inflation spikes this century after waves of sanctions over the invasion of Ukraine collapsed the ruble and disrupted trade. Bloomberg Economics predicts inflation will peak at an annual 19% around July. Ratings agencies Fitch and Moody's downgraded Russia by 6 notches to junk status, saying Western sanctions threw into doubt its ability to service debt and would weaken the economy. Russia is also banned from the SWIFT banking system. SWIFT, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, is a network that links 11,000 financial institutions in more than 200 countries. SWIFT is the global financial artery that allows the smooth and rapid transfer of money across borders. A ban from SWIFT severely cripples a country's ability to conduct transactions in a timely manner. The aim is for Russian companies to lose access to the normal instant transactions provided by SWIFT. Payments for its valuable energy and agricultural products will be severely disrupted, and banks would likely have to deal directly with one another, adding delays and extra costs, and ultimately harming revenue for the Russian government. Although many companies have left Russia due to sanctions, many others have left of their own choosing in a decision referred to as self-sanctioning. Dozens of the world's biggest companies have abandoned or scaled back their operations in Russia in response to its invasion of Ukraine. This exodus affects every corner of the economy, from its vast energy riches through the automobile industry, finance, retail, entertainment, and fast food, starving Russia of new investment and removing products and services that had become popular in the decades since the collapse of the Soviet Union. To the surprise of many, despite Russia offering steep discounts on its oil, it's having a hard time selling it. The US and the UK have decided to ban trade of Russian oil. However, Russian energy make up a small part of their total energy imports, in contrast to Europe, who import a significant amount of oil and gas from Russia. Most countries have not passed laws restricting trade of Russian oil and gas, but nonetheless, many oil traders seem hesitant to buy Russian energy, even when offered at a steep discount. Although some countries are trying to remain neutral, very few are actively supporting Russia. The one major exception is China, who have been repeating Russia's untrue claims about the war. Russia, seeing China as their one major potential ally, has asked China to send them military and economic aid, according to US officials. However, China disputes this claim and states that Russia has not done so. According to a US intelligence official at the NSA, the US has been warning China of getting involved, stating, "We will not allow that to go forward and allow there to be a lifeline to Russia." Despite the war being less than 3 weeks old, there have been numerous significant developments, with many countries and alliances taking strong steps to ensure the return of peace. Many in Ukraine and Eastern Europe are arguing that the world hasn't done enough to aid them, and that they have been left to fight Russia alone. Whether or not NATO and Europe are doing enough to help is left up to interpretation. Although other countries are denying Ukraine's request for direct military involvement, the actions the world has taken to support Ukraine in other ways have been extremely significant, both in terms of unprecedented economic penalties against a major world power and in providing much-needed weaponry that has been devastating to Russian forces. The War Watch is a volunteer-run project. If you would like to learn more, please visit our website. If you would like to contribute, we are currently recruiting for the roles of researcher, social media marketing and management, as well as video editor. And also anyone with any experience in writing, editing, or journalism would be highly valuable to our project. Thanks for watching.